Hello, 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 everybody. I am Vernā Myers, and I am the host of the podcast Sundays with Vernā. And I am so thrilled that you're joining us. This is our first live podcast on YouTube. We are on YouTube and we're on all of the places where you can find podcasts, but this is our first live presentation, and we are so grateful that you have joined us. If you're wondering, we're going to wait for a few people to get in and get placed, but we also want to tell you where you can see us on YouTube. So let's put up the YouTube QR code that you can use. And you might as well, you got your phone right there. You might as well just pick up your phone, do the QR code thing, and start following us on this channel. We have lots of episodes already published, and of course, this will be there as well and going forward. So please, as you come into the room and you get comfortable, please just take out your phone, do the thing where you follow our channel. And also, please leave us comments there and also in the comment section. For example, where are you joining us from? And how you feeling? What's, just presently in this moment, how you doing? Where are you? So if you will just start giving us some comments, we'll know that you're out there and you're alive and well. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bring on the, okay, Ohio. Fantastic. We love Ohio. Wonderful. I know we don't have a lot of time for our podcast, so I want to make sure that we get started because we have so much to share. So here's the thing. Again, our podcast is Sundays with Vernā, and it's been around for a little while. This is our first live, as I mentioned, and this is the version of our podcast which we are calling No Blame, No Shame. So this is the version of our podcast where we get to have more people sort of talking to us about their perspectives and also welcoming perspectives. And what better, like inaugural No Blame, No Shame episode would there be than politics at the holiday table, right? I know that lots of folks are concerned about just how they approach their family and their friends and the gatherings that inevitably will happen during the holiday season. And lots of people wanted to hear our thoughts and advice in a world that, especially in a year that has felt so tumultuous and filled with so much bitterness and anger and hatred and just, really people feeling on edge and a lot of isolation as well. Like the thing to actually shape, or actually help with isolation is usually gathering and community and family, etc. But even within our families, even what's going out in the world is also affecting us with our most intimate friendships and groups and also our families. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about as a person who is always trying to find the most humane aspect of myself to present and to help serve others, I wanted us to ask ourselves the question, how do we want to go into these holidays? Like, what could we do if we were willing to do it in a way that would create more connection and more compassion, as well as being able to be our authentic self? Yeah, tall order. I know, by the way, that there's some folks who are like, yes, all that you said is why I'm not going to participate in any of these gatherings. And I get it, because it's not just like what's happening outside. People have family dynamics, history, context, you name it. We don't know it all. And so I don't want to suggest that people should endanger or make themselves uncomfortable for any reason. But I do want to encourage us to think about what it is that we can do to expand our hearts and our actions towards others in a way that creates more peace and more compassion. And to do that, I have brought in two really wonderful people who I think you're going to enjoy. And I want to just introduce them to you properly. So I'm going to read a little bit about their bio. So the first person is Elizabeth Woodson, and Elizabeth is a new friend, and I am so excited about the work that she's doing. But let me tell you a little bit about her. Elizabeth has a decade of work in racial equity, spans philanthropic institutions like the Emerson Collective, a direct service roles in Connecticut, public education at the Equal Justice Initiative in Alabama, a skilled facilitator and community organizer. She brings a deeply informed perspective shaped by her early life in Connecticut in her leadership at Stanford, and now she resides in Montgomery, Alabama. So I really want to welcome Elizabeth here, and I think you will discover that she brings a very interesting perspective. The other person we have today is a good friend and colleague, Jim Johnson. And Jim is a seasoned executive and legal strategist, previously serving as in New York City's Corporation Counsel, New Jersey State Special Counsel, and private sector partner. And now he's leading operations at a large church in New York. Very interesting. He's a Harvard alum and a nonprofit board member committed to justice, equity, and community impact. So let us welcome our two guests. And the thing that I love about our guests is, yes, they are family members. They're part of families and communities, but they're also experts in bridging differences, different opinions, different backgrounds, and actually trying to think about what it takes to do that in a way that brings harmony and unity rather than further exacerbates friction and division. So welcome to Sundays with Vernā and our No Blame, No Shame podcast. How's it going?
It's going well. It's good to be here, Vernā. Good to join you.
Thank you. And let me just ask for folks who are in North Carolina and Westport and Chicago and all over the place here. First, before we even get started, how are y'all feeling about the holidays? Are you looking forward to it, as in climbing to it? Can't wait. Do you have some apprehensions? Like, how are you feeling right now about what it's going to look like for you? Oh, you're so sweet. I'm just looking at the comments. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad you're here with us. We need this. Someone is saying yes. Thank you. So, we are all, yes, people are apprehensive. A lot of folks, I think, are here because of the worry, apprehension, and also the desire to show up. So I'm going to start with you all first, which is, Elizabeth, let me go to you. How you feeling about the holidays coming up?
Thank you so much. It's really exciting to be here, and I am feeling many things. Part of that is a lot of gratitude. I recently had a family member pass away, and so extra aware of how meaningful it is to get to be together with family, and also this is my professional work and it doesn't get easier. I still hold a lot of anxiety about what those conversations are going to look like and a sense of the courage that will be needed. But I have my Reckon With group. I have some other folks that I know will be supporting me through that. But it doesn't get easier. So I'm also feeling that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the multiple feelings. And already you're talking about having support, right? I think that is actually really positive, but also acknowledging the importance of family. Jim, how you feeling?
Like Elizabeth, we in my family we actually have lost in the last month 3 of our elders, and we had them a good long time. The youngest of them was 89. The next one was 91, and the oldest was 96. And so I've been in touch with family a lot over the last little bit, and we've really focused less on the world outside of us and more on holding each other close. And so the opportunity to come together, one of my children said, we need to figure out a way to actually have a very joyous, at least bring in the joy and bring in the light. And that's the focus. And that's my target for this season. So we're going to carry the bitter for sure and the sorrow. But our intention, and I think that's very important in going into the holidays, not just what we fear, but what is our intention? Our intention will be to try to bring the light.
I love that. To try to bring the light. That's a powerful intention. Thank you, Jim. Now, both of you, as I mentioned, are in work where you have sat through lots of dialogue, some that have been difficult, right? Some that you're actually facilitating. You've listened to a lot of what people are bringing to the conversation around politics, but also around like the who's on what side, right? The us versus them, the real scare, like based on things that have been happening. So tell me let's just go general. What have you learned from your work about what it takes to bridge differences in a way that is constructive and that leads to more connection, more light, as he said, Jim? Jim, you want to go first?
I'm happy to jump in first, and then Elizabeth can correct me. My approach is, you listed a lot of the things that I've done, and the credentials that I have, but my approach has really been informed by my family. In particular, there was a saying that my grandmother had. And she grew up in the segregated South. She dealt with Jim Crow firsthand and was part of the Great Migration north to Newark. And what she would say was just, James, we're all God's children. And her perspective was to bring an open heart. And she would even say, she was just quoted at one of the family funerals a couple of weeks ago, having reminded her grandchild, like, listen, not everybody's going to give you a good time, is going to be fair to you. There are going to be some people that are going to be hard, but work hard, because there are people out there who will give you an opportunity. And when you come into these conversations, I think it's important, yes, to have some protection up, but also to be curious and open and be prepared to be surprised.
I love that. Shocked, right?
Not just shocked, but surprised, pleasantly.
I want to just add a little bit to that, because I think a lot of people know that I have like a set of like guidelines called Talking Boldly Guidelines, and one of them is listen to be changed, right? And that usually means that it's a different kind of listening that many of us are used to, where we're used to just like, let me listen well enough to figure out my argument against the person, versus what you said, Jen, which is about curiosity and being willing to learn something that you didn't know that would actually shock you. Elizabeth, what would you add to sort of what you've learned from the work you've done?
I've learned that it is hard to be curious and patient, and it takes discipline, and it takes practice and rehearsal. And fundamentally, it takes support. I know that my whole professional life has been in racial justice. I am very educated on the topic, and yet it is very hard to respond differently than you have been conditioned. And so we draw a lot in our work from the addiction recovery models that are very clear that changing how you interact with yourself and the world, you just need to be doing it with other people that are trying to do the same thing. And so I know for myself with my group of 3, that's what Reckon With does. We put our participants in groups of 3. You know, we know what each has committed to trying, and we know when and with who, so we can both offer encouragement on the front end via text. We encourage all of our groups to stay in touch between their meetings via text. And then, like just recently, I had committed to try 2 things. I tried one of them. I didn't try the other one. I got scared and I didn't do it. And I had them to go and say, this is what I need to work on next time. So both peer support and expert support, right? Like getting to learn from folks like you, Vernā, and all the wonderful resources that are out there to support us. But to have a really consistent kind of practice space and community to role play, put it into your own words beforehand, right? Athletes know very well you don't do well on the court if you don't go to the practice gym. And I'm not a sports person, so forgive me. I don't think it's called practice gym, but that concept is very clear. I've heard it from so many teachers, right? Rehearse. You got to rehearse first. So I think finding many ways of support is such an important component of these going well.
Can I add a little bit to that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Vernā and I actually had played basketball together in law school a million years ago. That's how we first met on the basketball court.
That's how I tore my ACL. Not with you, Jim. Not with you, but okay. Thank you for bringing back the memory.
But picking up the sports analogy, in a lot of ways, Thanksgiving is like the emotional Olympics. We compete at every single level there. There is how many people are you going to bring there? Who's got the best sweet potato pie or candied yams? All of that. And it's like we prepare to win, as opposed to picking up on Elizabeth's idea and Vernā's preparing to understand. And this is, if the first time you're getting ready for Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving morning, I would suggest that's way too late to pull up to the starting line. But as Elizabeth was suggesting, instructing really, this preparation starts in here. It's an internal preparation, and making sure that I would, for one, if social media gets you excited and wound up, turn it off for a couple of days. I would suggest that you prepare for, particularly with your relatives, there's usually either something at some stage that you did with them at some point that gave you joy, or there's someone that you share in common that loved both of you. And capturing either of those things and coming in with that, and coming with my understanding is my relationships with my cousins are largely really good. And I have 55 cousins. So there's we have a big family. And there are a lot of religious and political and even racial differences between blended families within my family. But the relationships that you have aren't yours that you own. They're yours, from my perspective, that you are stewarding. Because I inherited these cousins, and I inherited the richness of family. And so when I go into these sessions, I am thinking about protecting what I've been given and also what the next generation might be passed on to. And if that's the mindset, I think that some of the political discussions become a little bit, not completely easier, but in a better context.
Wow. I mean, you gave us a lot there, right? I mean, the practice thing we want to just say, right? No one gets good at this without practicing. And even what Elizabeth said is, as much as I have practiced, I can still get hooked, right? I can still get it, like my temperature can still rise to a point where I'm saying something that I wish I hadn't. By the way, if you start talking and you realize you put your foot in it and you've like started something that's going in the wrong direction, you can always stop people. You don't have to keep going. And you can also say, you know what, I'm gonna just go to the bathroom, I'll be back. You can do all sorts of things. Is it time for dessert? If you don't continue, right? But the other thing that, Jim, you are bringing in also is mindset, heart set, mindset. Okay, but this is only for folks who want to see what I think we are trying to lift up, which is the power and the need to be in connection with human beings, especially those who you call family. Now, I also know that lots of people have suffered in their family, so I don't want to be like, oh, you know, family is everything and it's all good. I hear that and I know that. And we also have a lot of old dynamics that can surface, the competition, as you mentioned, right? The thing that got done to you when you were younger. So I want to acknowledge all of those things. And I also want to ask, you know, the preparation of heart and mind. I don't see how that can make things go worse. I know that it could make things, you can actually see miracles, not always and not immediately, but mindset, heart set, and then that, I love that piece, Jim, about like maybe go in with something that was positive and that's what you're pulling your energy from. And then the other point also that you made, which is like, you know, don't try to win, like don't go in trying to win. Yeah. I think that is really important, and maybe stay away from the media that gets you riled up. Like maybe just don't look at it for, you said a few days. Yeah, I get it. Absolutely. Because here's the other thing that I know. Often we go into these dynamics like we are charged full of statistics and reports that we're gonna like throw at people anytime they dispute our perceptions and opinions. And I think that leave those tools behind for this time, at least. That there's a place for that. I don't think it's the dinner table. That's just my opinion. But Elizabeth, I know that you have, first of all, I want to shout out Reckon. So we're going to put we're going to put the website in the comment section for Reckon With. Reckon With is your newish project and you are welcoming all sorts of people, but you said you put people in threes. And I want to say out loud, because I want people to be clear, that the threes are white folks who are in threes talking across whatever differences they have, but it's not race, about racism and how to show up differently. But you might want to describe it in a different way and just tell us a little bit more about what you've learned about yourself that could help us think about how to be in the holiday situation.
So we are lucky to see many white people in our era that want to take action, right? Feeling a lot of dismay about the current and ongoing reality of the United States, the division, the dysfunction, the violence, the inequality, right? And that leads to deep motivation to do something, right? And more of us are learning, which is great. Some of us are doing electoral work, phone banking, for example, which is also really needed. the piece that I know I've always struggled with is what you say to your Uncle John at the dinner table, what you do with your colleague Sue that you sit next to every day, right? And those are the spaces, those relationships that already exist that we hold, as you said so beautifully, Jim, that we have inherited and are ours to steward. White people have not been good at engaging those with both rigor and with love to really see the mandate that is ours to change from within. And so the biggest thing is to redirect our focus to the white people and systems that are closest to us. So in our participants, everyone commits to two issues, two efforts in their lives. So that might be your cousin and your workplace. It could be your father and maybe you have a child at a school and there's a parent association. So it's very personalized. And then the groups meet every week or every other week to really just face that week. What's happening in my life that week? Do I have a meeting? Do I have a coffee? What's already happening? And then how can I prepare, practice, rehearse to have it go differently, right? Instead of rupture, to choose repair. Instead of explosion or silence, to do or say something that is meaningful. And so, I think what we're hoping for, and that I've seen in myself, I was working I moved to Alabama to work at the Equal Justice Initiative and was very honored to be part of getting to create the Legacy Museum and be part of that team and the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. It was truly an incredible and deeply meaningful experience. These are sacred spaces of truth telling that we all need to experience. And while I was doing that work, I also noticed that I would come home and I had a neighbor that was consistently calling the police on one of our Black neighbors. And I would sit there and watch and do nothing. And it was very dismaying because I knew I cared and I knew I wanted to, but I didn't. And similarly with family, I was engaging, but I was yelling. I was telling them that they were stupid and bad. I had so much disdain in my heart. And I was accurate in the facts that I was saying, to your point, Vernā. But it really came to a head for me when, so a few years ago, I was going at it again. I was saying something, yelling at my mom, and she paused and looked at me and said, "I hate talking about race because you're always so angry at me." And I finally was really brought to my knees because I understood I could have been saying gobbledygook, right? The words were truly irrelevant. What she was experiencing was, my daughter hates me. And having lived now in the Deep South for almost 8 years, it's disrespectful to engage in what you are calling justice in that way, right? If the folks that could sit at the sit-in counters and have ketchup poured on their faces could respond with love, I better be able to do better than that, And so what we are trying to do is to really help shift our patterns and the skills that we have, right? There's 4 really important skills that we focus on so that we're engaging, again, not to win the political argument, because first of all, whoever's in the presidential office, we haven't gotten to liberation yet, right? So the politics is important, but that really is not the goal in many ways. What is the goal is confronting the realities of harm and injustice and generations of that, right? I'm the 12th generation of European settlers on my dad's side and the 5th on my mom's side. So we have a lot of that to confront so that we can heal, because you can't be in a lineage of enacting harm and denying it and be well. And I do want to be well. I want my family to be healthy. And I want my 14-year-old cousin to have a different inheritance, right? And I want future children and grandchildren to have had a courageous and truthful conditioning to face it and to repair what is ours.
Wow, that's really powerful. And thank you for sharing that. Elizabeth is saying, I learned that yelling at people and showing them, that you are angry with them doesn't work. But what do you do, Jim, when people are saying or positing or, especially when they're young folks at the table, like, what do you do in a situation where maybe you're triggered a little bit, or you're really worried about the next generation picking up some of the confusion and the misunderstanding? Yeah, what do you do? How do you deal with that?
It really depends on how it comes out. If it is a sideways snarky comment, but it's been picked up, you can react to it, but not be activated by it, which is often deflecting with humor, realizing, of course, that there's still going to be some teaching that has to go on, but it probably won't go on over the giblets and cranberry sauce. Right? One of the things that Elizabeth, I would want to raise up is the importance of thinking about maintaining the relationship. When I was much younger than I am now, there was one family gathering, and we were talking about, I believe it was the role of women, and I was taking a more progressive view, and one of my grandmothers was listening, and then and she listened to this young boy with statistics, and then she stood up at the table and she put her hands on her hips. She said, "I gave birth to 11 babies." I actually don't remember that much of what she said after that. Um, but I knew that my job at that time was not to deliver statistics, but to listen to grandma say her piece.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
I love that. I love that.
that is really, really important. And it's not that I don't think she and I, there are many things we did see eye to eye on, but there were plenty that we didn't. But there came a point when it's like, this is grandma. I've made my point, and now I need to give her her propers.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I mean, there are several things that you said that I wanted just to actually bring out. One is just the respect. And I think this comes from Elizabeth's point too about her mother. Like, it's real hard for people to want to be with you or connect with you if they can't feel your respect for them as human beings, right? I think that a lot of folks, and I'm sort of living through this right now in my own family, like, yeah, but I'm right. Yeah, but I'm right. So I should be able to say that. And that's me being authentic. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. And there are other things like maintaining a relationship, right? If you can, and if it doesn't wound you. And here's the thing, I think we're stronger than we are giving ourselves credit for. I think we can hear certain things that are not our opinion. And by the way, so much of this is about opinions. I know we think it's truth, and it might be, I don't know, I'm not going to say, but it's still an opinion that we have about what the truth is. And so one is to like recognize that you are you just a person with an opinion. But the reason why I say I think we're stronger is because we can learn to listen to other points of view, calm ourselves down. And like I said, if you need to breathe, you need a breather. I've also published an article like, or you need a buffer. Maybe you need a person to come with you to a particular place where you can actually go over to the side or outside and take a walk. And you're like, can you believe what is being said, right? Just so that you get your steam out, right? Or, for a person like me that tries to be mindful, I'm asking myself questions, like in the moment, like, what is upsetting about this for you? Like, how are you doing? Like, can you breathe through this? And also, like, I'm also asking myself questions like, is there a question you can pose? Because often we think we know what people are saying, and sometimes people are just deeply inartful with how they present things. And then when you ask them, well, what do you mean? Or tell me more, then they're saying something that's very different than what you expected. And occasionally they're saying what Jim's grandma said, which is like, look, yeah, right? I'm giving birth to 11 babies. No.
It's like, okay.
Good point, right? Good point. And you can say that to people. You can say, you know what? That's a really good point. I never actually thought about that. Or I truly appreciate that. And I have a different opinion. And of course, there are some egregious things that people are saying that I could not let go by, right? So there's stuff that I can breathe through and divert and distract and maybe add humor or maybe do something that presents a different but not threatening reality. But when it's really egregious, I am also fine to say I can't buy into that.
Yeah.
Or I feel very differently, or it's very upsetting to hear that, but you don't then need to go into the lecture, or in my case, the workshop. So what do you all, what works in addition to sort of what we've shared already? People are out here, they want to know how to be. I think we've given them some very great ideas, but what doesn't work and what does work given what you have already experienced, and both in your own family and professionally? Like, how do we keep our connections and communities as healthy as possible?
One is, to me, part of it is time out sometimes, and saying to yourself, I need to take a break, and excusing yourself for a moment if things get really heated. And they do. With this green background and this black turtleneck, I might look like I'm trying to be a Zen master or nothing. I'm a litigator and a former prosecutor. And so my default position is, and I ran for office. So my default position is not necessarily let's sing Kumbaya together. I'm more likely, if I'm not thinking about it, to go to Duke's Up, particularly if it's something that hurts. And there's nobody that can hurt you more than somebody who's close in. And it's very easy to listen, or easier to listen to folks with objectionable views when they're not on what's supposed to be your team. And so taking a time out, thinking about this as this is one moment in a long haul that is already generations long, and we hope will be a generation forward. Definitely breathing, checking in with yourself. We all have, I think, tells. Mine is that, being, I guess, pugilistic, my forearms I can feel myself getting tight, literally. So those are the sorts of things, but it starts with perspective and your own framing, and the other things follow for that.
Elizabeth, what would you add? What the do's and the don'ts?
So much is reflected in what you just shared, Jim. We do have 4 components that we offer for our participants. There is a lot of anxiety around holidays in particular. Of course, the next one coming up is Thanksgiving. So there's 4 kind of invitations that we offer. The first is to take inventory. When you're working with people that you have a huge, beautiful library of knowledge and data about them. You know what triggers them, you know what triggers you, you know what's gone well, you know what's not gone well. It's an amazing resource, but we often don't recognize it as such, right? So the first step that we suggest is to take inventory of how you could take it as this holiday, right? Or broader, right? But how has this holiday gone in the past? And to really focus actually not on what they have done and said that's bad, but on you. How have you engaged with them? And what has been triggering to you? What have you done in those moments? Just really try to be honest about how it has gone in the past. So after you've done inventory, the second thing that we do is to vision. And this again gets to so much of what you've shared, Jim. We have to know where we're going, right? The elders are very clear that it's a two-part mandate to get to liberation. The first is dismantle the harm that exists today. But there's a second part, and the second part is, where are you going? What are you growing? What are you building? What future is it? You have to have a sense of that, right? And so we do suggest that you take some time and you go to a comfortable physical place and you close your eyes, and maybe you have some music, have a pet near you, bring out some coloring pencils and paper, and let yourself imagine a year from that day. And then 10 years from that day and 100 years from that day, because that's really what we're talking about, is what is this gathering going to look like of your family in 100 years? And this is a time to be really out there, right? Anything that you can possibly imagine that makes your body feel grounded and your soul feel joyful, and that you have really arrived as a lineage. That's what you want to imagine into. So like you were saying, I think that's also in the vein of like attaching to a moment of love and joy, right? Like grounding yourself in something other than this has always been horrible. So after inventory and envisioning, the third is commit to a tiny attempt, right? Again, you're working in a relationship. You're going to see these people again. This is a chance to experiment with the next thing that you're going to try. And you'll learn it worked or it didn't work. Great. If it worked, you can share that with other people. If so that they can try it as well. And if it didn't work, then okay, this goes into the data inventory. Not going to try that again, And it can be the tiniest thing, like Jim, you were saying. It could be that you're going to take a breath when that uncle says that thing. You're going to take a breath, right? It could be that you do your own learning about, for example, what native lands are you on? Do you know about the native lands that you're going to? And then maybe there'll be a moment when you're sitting next to your cousin and you can say, I learned this and I thought it was really interesting. And I was wondering if you knew that as well. And see what might, as you're saying, the serendipity, right? If you're well equipped, not to do a lecture, but just you've done your own. So it could also be that you want to reach out in advance, right? People and surprises unsurprisingly does not go well, right? So we've also found that maybe you want to reach out to the host in advance and say, I was wondering if maybe we could do a land acknowledgement during the blessing or after the blessing. Would that be something that we could explore together, right? Like, and invite people in with you, right? It's not just you and the fight, right? The more that you can invite and make communal these attempts, the better. So a tiny attempt, just make a commitment to try one thing to shift towards that 100-year vision. And then the fourth is aftercare, right? So this gets to your point as well, Jim, about this is just one moment. And when we're talking about Thanksgiving, one of the things that we've been trying to remind our participants is there are 52 Thursdays in the year. This is just one, right? Unfortunately, it's usually the only one where we engage at all. And then often it does not go well, right? But we want to remind ourselves that we need to be engaging in all 52 of those Thursdays. And when we do that, it is a very different one of the Thursdays that Thanksgiving is, right? So the fourth thing is the next Thursday is the 4th of December. And again, this could be any holiday or gathering that you have, but choose the week out from that gathering. What is something that you're going to do just to nurture the relationship? Maybe you could text them to say thank you for hosting. Maybe you could write them a card. Maybe you could just see, maybe their child, they need someone to pick up their kid from school and you offer to do that. What's something that is just about honoring, nurturing, and loving them, right? And so those 4 things we can apply to kind of really hopefully any day or interaction, but helps bring a little bit more specificity to our ongoing attempts.
Wow.
May I ask a 30-second question of Elizabeth?
Yes.
How about doing that altruistic thing before Thanksgiving together? Right? Almost like an inoculant.
Yes. It's a great idea. It's this whole idea that this is an extensive thing. This is not one particular situation. And if everything goes wrong, it has to be perfect. Any of those things. It's the work before. It's always the pre-work, the moment, and the post-work, right? So even just thinking about that, I think gives us some relief. It takes off some of the pressure. And I love, like, you've got a library full of information about people who you're going to be eating with. There could also be the spoiler, the guest. So be prepared for the guest to throw you off, right? Maybe you want to call and say who's coming, but like as an after follow-up, you might be like, let's make sure we all have each other's emails. And you can like ping people like, it was great to see you, or your email or your whatever. Or let's continue to have this conversation, or maybe we should meet more frequently. Because what you're doing ultimately is trying, as we said early on, cultivating a relationship that could be sustained over time and that can work us through and help us through this very difficult time. Because if there was ever a time that we need unity and peace and connection and understanding and respect and compassion, it is right now. So what role do you want to play? And if we had more time, I would ask you all more really important questions that I know you would all be really good at helping us with. I think a lot of people might be thinking, so I'm just going to name this, even though we won't be able to say much. I'm going to have you wrap, and maybe you will respond to this. But some of us, it didn't go well last time, or it didn't go well last week. And so there's a need for repair. And how does one repair is also, or if, with all your best intention and all your preparation and everything, still things kind of go off the rails. I don't know if you saw that episode on the bear. Oh my gosh, they had this family dinner. It was catastrophic, but we don't want that. But as I ask you to close us just with your thoughts, anything you want to say to leave with the audience, as well as perhaps anything about repair. Jim, I'll start with you.
All right. Well, when my wife and I got married, one of our friends said to us, "There's always going to be something that goes wrong at the wedding. Just remember, it's part of the story. It's just part of the story." And so keeping first internally, again, the one thing that you actually can control is yourself and your frame for an event. Thinking about the event in light of that frame, and then conceding that, something is always going to be a little bit off. Great baseball players, the greatest, only hit 4 out of 10 when they're at bat. So we want to do a little bit better for family gatherings, but frame it in such a way as like, this is probably not the end of the world. But it is an important data point for the relationship that you want to continue to build.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I'd say it really gives us a chance to live into the values we claim to hold. And I know for me, apology is very hard, right? It is not something that we are in any way conditioned to have skill or prowess in our culture. So I know it's really powerful when the person that you're trying to engage and trying to reckon with, and you are the one that creates rupture. I know that happens to me all the time. Still, you choosing to reflect and then go to them and say, maybe it's a text or maybe whatever you can do, right? But I know that I said or did this, and I know that it was hurtful, or I know that it created stress, and I want to say that I'm sorry about that, and that I love you, and that I hope we can talk about it again another time. It's a tiny molecule of a new pattern in your family, right? And we're all going to need to be doing that. This is not something that other people change, but I don't change, right? That's what I thought for a long time. It's not how it works. We all have to be in this commitment to repair at the macro level, in terms of generations of harm committed, and at that micro level of, I snapped at you and I am sorry. So again, when you have kind of an accountability buddy, someone that you can role play with, that helps. But pushing through, Resma Menicum has been on your show, Vernā, and he talks about clean pain versus dirty pain. A lot of wonderful resources to draw from him in terms of grounding beforehand and after. But there is a difference, but we know when we're doing something that's hard, but it's right. And it helps us build that muscle, same muscle we're asking others to build. So we need to do it too.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning Resma Menicum, who is quite a powerful trauma expert, but also a person who really helps us understand some of the skills and mindsets we need to create these real, authentic, and loving connections. So thank you to both. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Jim, for joining us for our live podcast here. I hope that our audience enjoyed it. I just want to give you our YouTube QR code again so that you can follow us and get more and more opportunities to hear from really wonderful people like Jim and also like Elizabeth. I also wanted to tell you that, okay, sorry, here's our QR code. Just fish your phone out, take a picture, and just follow us. We would love to have you. If you don't get to do this, you can always go to our website, everything. Follow me on all of the channels, LinkedIn, Insta. It's all at Vernā Myers. Our website is vernamyers.com. And last but not least, I want to tell you that we are going to have another virtual complimentary, it's free, webinar, which is actually a party, our end of the year party. We did one in August and it was quite a joy. And this year our MC is Angela Chi, a really well-known journalist and reporter who's going to be actually having really fabulous guests, special guests to give us their wisdom about the year, what they learned this year, how they survived this year, what they're grateful for, and what they're taking into 2026. It's going to be a fun party. The last time we had over 100 people who all enjoyed it and really gave them the sort of the joy and the grounding that they needed in that moment. And we expect to do the same at this party. So it's December the 10th. From 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we hope you will register and join us. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.